So finally arrived today, the ASIair Plus, the newest iteration of ASIair Pro was the last model for it. I've been using that for about 1.5 years now. I've really come to love it. I love that it was able to break down the barrier of entry to deep space astrophotography and imaging. I've been doing Milky Way photography for quite a while now. I love it. I love everything about it. And of course, the next natural evolution of that is to get into the deep space imaging. But if you've done any research into this online, it can be quite overwhelming to see the computer setups, the software, all of the complication that comes with it. And the ASIair Pro really is the thing. It delivered on its promise of simplifying that entire process. So I'm pretty excited to see what the next version of this brings, what improvements have been made, and what it can do to help people get into the hobby of astrophotography. That said, as part of the Experience Officers program from ZWO, one of the goals is to really just get a bunch of users out there testing this thing, providing reviews, providing input on some of the issues and suggestions and all that. And I will absolutely do that. I will connect this up to my existing rig. It's a relatively basic telescope setup with automatic focuser, filter wheel, the whole deal. We'll take a look at that. But I want to take a slightly different approach to this initial review and focus in more on how it can help, like I said, how it can help new astrophotographers get into the hobby and remove a lot of the learning curve and a lot of the, that difficulty that you might first encounter and just think, no, this isn't for me. That's way too much learning. Once you take that first image and you see a nebula that you can't see with your naked eye show up on the back of your camera sensor, you're going to be hooked. At least I was. I think that's the same story for many people. So I want to really dive into that aspect of it and show how this can be a really great tool to help you often utilize some of the existing gear that you've got. If you've got a DSLR, a mirrorless camera, and say a 135 millimeter or longer lens, more than likely you can get into this hobby with a few minimal additional purchases. A star tracker being one of them. We'll take a look at that. That's going to be absolutely critical to this. But beyond that, there's not a lot that's necessary to entry. So with that said, let's open up the box, take a look at what we got inside, and get ready to run this thing through its paces. So I received the box today, took this out of its original shipping packaging, haven't opened up what's inside. So we're going to take a look at this together for the first time and see what comes inside. First thing, not surprisingly, they kept the same red color, a similar design, although I believe slightly updated, still within the family of the ASIair, which is nice. As I pull this open, the unit, it's not heavy by any means, which in astrophotography, we obviously want to limit the weight of our gear that we put on, but it feels sturdy. It doesn't feel cheap in any way, which is a nice thing to see. The obvious addition, the external antenna. If everything is right, this is going to be the game changer. On the original, the Wi-Fi signal was so weak that a lot of users, myself included, ended up having to attach an external portable network extender so that we could actually get some Wi-Fi range out of it. And while that works great, it's just an extra hassle. It's an extra piece of gear. It's an extra expense. It's more cords going on and so forth. But regardless, if this is the solution, this will be fantastic. We look on the side, we've got the same 12 volt input. We've got the Wi-Fi indicator, a reset button, hopefully not needed. On-off switch as usual. Similar configuration of the 4 12 volt DC outputs controlled by the app, the software itself, which is nice. We'll take a look at that. Your DSLR input to control the camera and the communication back and forth. We've got our 4 USB ports, 2 USB 2, 2 USB-C, 2 USB 2, 2 USB 3 ports, your Cat5 network connection for direct connection, and micro SD card slot on the side. And one other new addition is the USB-C direct connection to the PC. Now, big advantage to this is it makes use of the internal storage capacity of the unit itself. While you still can record to a micro SD on an external card, the internal storage is going to provide faster read-write signals, which will be a big advantage if you're doing the video on this, or shorter shutter speeds, and we're just going to essentially speed up the entire process of this. Plus, it maintains its self-contained unit setup, the appeal of it all being in one spot. So I can't wait to get this out, give this a run, see what we got, see what the improvements are. Looking underneath the packaging here, looks like we've got the same supplied cords as before, the USB 3 powered with the squared end here, as well as the various 12 volt DC cabling. And your very generalized, no offense, EWO, limited instruction cards. That's okay. We're going to take a look at the software. I'll give you a walk through some of this. And like I said, I want to make at least one of these videos be kind of a combination of instructional setup as well as kind of running it through its paces, but also giving a glimpse of how you can utilize some of your existing gear to enter into this hobby a little bit with a minimal investment in new equipment. You're certainly going to need a star tracker of some sort. I got into this with the Ioptron Skyguider Pro. It's kind of the in-between. It's portable. It's great for Milky Way work, as well as I've been able to push its limits pretty far in some deep space astrophotography. So that's something that will be absolutely necessary. But beyond that, you'll probably be able to get away with, using the DSLR that you already own or a mirrorless camera. Pair it with a 135 millimeter lens or longer focal length. The requirement for precision just goes up the longer the focal length is, and start to image some deep space objects. And I promise you, at least for me and a lot of other people's experience, once you see that first nebula, the first thing that you can't see with the naked eye out in the sky show up in the back of your camera display, that's when the addiction starts. So anyway, let's get this all unwrapped, roughly set up out into the field, and we'll run this through your paces. I'll give you a view of the setup. Okay, so I've got everything set up out here in one of our local county parks, and I'll just kind of give you a look at what we've all got going on here. So first of all is the battery pack driving this whole setup. Now, you certainly can do what I've done in the past and get yourself one of these cords that just connects to your car's cigarette lighter or to the outlet, and then runs right up into the ASIair. From there, I've got a USB cord that runs up and connects to the port on my original Canon 6D Mark I with a Canon 70-200 lens attached to it. That's all sitting on top of Ioptron's Skyguider Pro and the Latitude base on top of a sturdy tripod. Now, mind you, some of these things have been slightly upgraded components, like the Latitude base itself. It's an aftermarket piece from Williams Optics, as well as the alt-azimuth here, you see. But either way, the pieces that the original kit comes with is more than enough to get the job done. So there's really, aside from the ASIair and the star tracker itself, there's not a whole lot that you would need to purchase in addition to some gear that you've already got. Now, one of the biggest advantages to the ASIair is its ability to help you find the objects in the sky. One of the most difficult things that I've seen, myself included, for people beginning in this hobby is simply just locating the objects at night. You can use various methods of star hopping. You can attach laser pointers to the end of your lens, so on and so forth, but I haven't really found anything more consistently reliable than using the degrees, as noted in some supplementary apps, and using that with the plate solving mechanisms of the ASIair app, the ASIair app, to help you really dial in on that. So that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the app itself and some of the key features that are going to help us locate the objects and start shooting for the evening. Okay, so when you first open up the ASIair app, you're going to see a number of different options, settings, and tools available to you. It can be a little bit overwhelming at first, but don't worry, I'm not going to go into every one of these during this video. Just going to give you kind of a quick overview of the main tools that really help you get into astrophotography. The first of which is the Focus Assist tool here. One of the more difficult things that I've always found is being able to nail that tack sharp focus when you're first getting into this using a manual lens. And this tool really helps make that a simpler process. So what I can do is I'll set my exposure to about 1 second when I'm at ISO 2500 and start this looping. Once it loads that first image through, it's going to allow me to move this cursor here, this target, onto a single star and zoom in on it. When I do, and it starts to load this, it's going to give you a zoomed in view of that star, similar to what you'd see on, using the live view on the back of your camera and zooming in. But it'll also give you the star size and peak tools that really help you dial in on an exact focus for this, both visually and mathematically. Again, I've already done this for this setup. I'm not going to get into the details of the mechanics of this, but suffice it to say, it makes the tedious process of rotating that focus ring back and forth a lot more seamless and reliable. So once you're happy with that, you can hit the stop button here to stop the looping, back out of it, and move into our next tool, the preview tool. Now this one is where it becomes really simplifies being able to find the objects in the sky, which is, from what I've experienced personally and, talking to a number of people, one of the more difficult things when you're getting into this is finding these objects that you can't necessarily see with the naked eye. But what this tool does is allows us to take a single photo. In this case, I've got it set for 3 seconds at ISO 2500. I'm going to take that image, and then when it loads up into this, it's going to show us a preview of, the stars and the position of where we are in the sky. And we can use the tool called plate solving. And when I tap that button here on the left, after the image loads, it's going to show me, it's going to read the stars in the sky, and it's going to tell me the position where the camera's pointed. A couple things here to take note of is the RA and the DEC, the declination, and or right ascension. So the right ascension right now is at 0 hours, 43 minutes, and 23 seconds. Declination, 41 degrees, 59 minutes, 41 seconds. And why that's important is when we switch over to the other app that I had talked about, Stellarium. Now I've already located and set my object for tonight, but we're going to go after the Andromeda Galaxy. So when you first open up this app, you can go into the search tool, you can type in Andromeda, find that here, and when I pull this up for more information, you'll see it's going to give me the position of RA and Dec. It's going to give me the position of RA and declination. So it shows 0 hours, 43 minutes, 56.5 seconds, and 41 degrees, 23 minutes, and 20.3 seconds. The power here is when I flip back over to my ASIair. Now again, I've already set this up, I've dialed this in, but you can repeat this process and just take a picture, move your mount, take an image, do the plate solve, and see where you're at, and just slowly dial into that exact position. Now in this case, I've already zoomed in, I've already dialed in, I've got the faint little dot of the Andromeda Galaxy here in the center of the screen, and now all I need to do is adjust my exposure settings a little bit to make sure that I've got this where I want. In this case, I'm going to use 60-second exposures with an ISO 2500, and I'm going to change my settings here, my mode, to live. Live's going to let me do a live stacking of this image. When I set my exposure settings to the same, we'll do 60 seconds. We're shooting lights, so we can leave the rest of this the same. Hit OK, and when I hit start, it's going to start taking images. After 60 seconds, it'll load this image in, it'll take another one, and it'll stack the two together. And keep repeating this process over and over for pretty much as long as I can tolerate sitting out here this evening and start forming my image. So we're going to let this run, and we'll come back when it's done. Okay, so we've let that run for almost 40 minutes now. You'll see I've got 39 images stacked. It's currently shooting the 40th. As soon as that finishes up here, we hit stop on this. We'll get back to the studio. We'll download all the images, do a quick process on this, and show you what we ended up with. Okay, so let's take a quick look at our finished image from this session. You can see here you've got the Andromeda Galaxy, clearly visible spiral arms of the galaxy itself, some color showing through the stars in the surrounding area. Now, it's not perfectly clear, it's not perfectly sharp, there's a little bit of noise throughout the image, and that's kind of what you'd expect from using some basic equipment like this that's really meant more for daytime photography than night sky photography. But again, the point of this is to illustrate just what can be done with the gear that you already own by adding in the ASIair Plus and throwing a star tracker into the mix. Now, you're never going to achieve the same results that you could with a small telescope setup like you see here in the Rosette Nebula, but being able to produce this first image of a deep space object is more than likely going to be the thing that lets you catch the bug, lets you get deep into this hobby. So there you have it. Like I said, I'm going to do further reviews, further tutorials on using the Air, different techniques for astrophotography, so on and so forth. So if you liked this video, if you like what you're seeing on the channel so far, please go ahead and like it, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.